What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 114 of the Steam Deck Podcast, Slipscreen Games' weekly gaming podcast, all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Peter Bessie, joined as always by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
And Mr. Max Wright.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Full steam ahead, boys. We got a fun one this week. Rumors of a Steam box. We've got maybe finally enough smoke to lead to the fire of a full SteamOS release. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
They're queuing up for something here, aren't they? A lot of smoke.
Seems that way. And, with all the, conversation the last couple weeks about controllers and VR headsets, and it might be a very exciting year for this podcast. Mm-hmm. So, Steve, talk to me about this Steam box. Like, we talked about this not that long ago, right? About kind of looking at some of the different like hardware like patents and stuff that we had been looking at, and we were wondering if maybe there might be another generation of a Steam box, maybe as a companion to the VR device of some kind. Who's to say? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so take this with a huge grain of salt, but once again, because Valve open sources a lot of their stuff, there has been some stuff found. So Cool BHO3K over on the Steam Deck subreddit found a change to the Steam Deck kernel by a Valve employee testing the HDMI CEC, which is the kind of protocol that automatically switches over channels whenever you turn a device on. So like you turn your PlayStation on, it'll automatically switch to that and you can kind of power up your TV. So this is obviously a device that will connect to a TV. It's not going to be something like a handheld or a VR headset that is got an HDMI port on it. And they found this codename Fremont, which seems to be some kind of device that's running on an AMD 8540U. It references the AMD Lilac. We don't know what that device is, what that system on a chip is. It seems to be something new that's not been released yet. So likely something that Valve has potentially been working with AMD on, similar to what they did with the Steam Deck. It looks like the AMD Lilac is here. However, this could be a Steam box. That's a possibility. It's also possible that this is in some way linked to Chrome OS and in some way because it's in the Chrome OS driver for the embedded controller, which is a little piece of like firmware that sits on the device that Chrome OS taps into. So it could be that it's a Chrome OS thing, or it could be that it is this additional box that Valve is potentially working on.
So if it is related to Chrome OS, sorry, what are we talking about? It's going to be like a device, or it's going to be that now Steam supports Chrome OS for like streaming or like Steam Link, or what are we thinking?
Well, it's unlikely that it's a streaming device, because if you look at the Geekbench GPU results, it's getting 66,807, whereas the Steam Deck GPU hits the mid 10,000s to mid 20,000.
Oh,
so it's around
much more powerful.
It's around 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck. Similarly, for the single core score on the GPU side, it gets 2550, 9,000s for the multi-core. The Steam Deck gets 1,300 to 1,400 for the single core, and 4,000 in the 4,000s for multi-core. So it's a little bit more on both the GPU and the CPU.
So
with this AMD Lilac chip,
I've got kind of two thoughts here that I want to toss out to you guys, and let me see what you think. Because I think there's two ways I can interpret this. If this is like a Chrome OS based device, perhaps this is in service of that kind of broader strategy that we've been talking about, which seems to be Valve's goal, right? Which is to get to a place where you can kind of access your Steam library anywhere on any device. And there are obviously a lot of devices that run off Chrome OS, like Chromebooks and things like that, that potentially maybe they want to find some way to bring Steam support to some of those devices that actually have native memory or something. I don't know. Or maybe that could be a situation where you have like an expandable, bit of memory or something like that you plug in, and then you can access it that way. Who's to say? I'm not super up on like where Chromebooks are at design wise these days. But that's my first thought, is that it is like them bringing Steam support to a device that maybe Google is making, right? That is like a living room box, or that is, some level of looking for some level of just compatibility with Chrome OS, which I think would make sense, right? They clearly want to get Steam on a device where Steam can run and where people can buy games from them. I think the other thing that is probably more interesting for our side of the conversation is this potentially, is this, if this is a Steam box, right? Is this potentially a partnership with Google to bring that ecosystem to that device, so that if you wanted to have a, Steam box as your kind of like central hub entertainment center in your living room, that you could use the Chrome OS side of it to like get in apps like Netflix or, Amazon Prime or whatever people are using, rather than Steam needing to go through or Valve, I guess, going to go through the hurdles to make Steam specific versions of those apps.
Mm-hmm. So sort of like so instead of it being like, how all of the Steam Deck competitors use Windows, instead of this device using Windows or using Linux, it uses Chrome as its main OS, but it just runs Steam sort of as its front end still. Is that the sort of thing you mean? Whereas then from there you can then go in and get, you leave Steam to get to access all of these other apps and your Netflix and things like that. So this is your entertainment center. This is how you access all of your media, but also then you just click into Steam and then bang, you have a powerful machine to play games on, almost like a console. Yeah, exactly like a console. It just runs on Chrome OS for some reason. It just seems weird that that's the plan. If like we've been talking about and like we have been talking about for a while, if the plan is to make SteamOS more accessible, put it everywhere, why that this device would be sort of in the works, and also why Google, who for the last 4 or 5 years have been working on their own mobile chips, why they wouldn't, why they would go to AMD for that system on chip,
Well, I think if they were working on their own chips, they're likely to be ARM-based. And we know that from some of the stuff that leaked a few weeks ago on SteamDB that there is going to be an ARM-based version of Steam that seems to be coming, whether that is specific to some kind of VR, because there's a lot of VR games in that list, or whether that is just a generic thing. I think you partner with AMD because it's x86. It's the same architecture as the games expect to run on. I struggle to see that this is related to a Chromebook just because it's kind of focused around like HDMI CEC, but it's possible that it is some kind of, I don't know, new box that Google's working on that they want to have as the center point of the living room, similar to they've got that like Android TV thing that they've got now. Maybe they have like a Chrome version of it, but I don't know. For me, it seems like if Valve was going to put the effort in and do this, it would be for something that's SteamOS based and running on SteamOS, especially considering some of the other stuff that's come out this week.
Do you think the Chrome OS thing is irrelevant, or do you think that's key to it? Do you think that just happens to be what they're testing it on, or what?
I mean, it's possible that they've just added that in to test that Chrome OS is running on there. It's possible that AMD's asked them to put it in there. There's a whole number of things. The codename Fremont is maybe interesting in that it's a place in Seattle, so it could be related to Valve, but it's also Google have a headquarters in California in Fremont. There's also the Tesla factory there, and we know that Steam runs on Teslas, so it's potential that maybe this is related in some way to that, and them having some kind of in-game system that they've already got, but maybe they kind of expand that and enhance it somewhat.
It's certainly like not what I was expecting, especially that sort of power. I hadn't actually read that right to know that was actually, as powerful as that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I could kind of see I could kind of see it going either way, you know. And to Steve's point, like maybe the reason it has Chrome OS on there is just to like show that it can run, right, and like provide alternatives, right? Like I don't know, but
it's possible that people want Chromecast functionality there as well. As a box that's taking up an HDMI slot on your TV.
That's the thing I'm thinking about, like in terms of them wanting to be able to kind of just like plug into an existing media library, right? Where it's like rather than having to go through, you know, because like we've talked about that like on Nintendo Noise of like, you know, isn't it kind of weird that there's still so few media apps on the Switch, right? And it's like you do have to go through the trouble of getting a version of the app put on the device and then maintained and yada yada, and that might cost money, and you know, whereas
there's
like
also DRM considerations, right? There's no real DRM when it comes to Linux. It's an open platform,
right.
And that's one of the reasons why Microsoft decided that the Game Pass wouldn't come there. I can see that Netflix might have concerns.
Yeah,
with that
like maybe
as well.
maybe app, you know, like streaming app, you know, rights holders or whatever, like don't want to create a Linux version of Netflix or what have you, right? And you know, this is like their way to kind of circumnavigate that if they want to make a play for the set-top box space, right? Or have like a, you know, a kind of like pseudo competitor to a home console. And they know that that's functionality that is necessary, right? In a way that it isn't on, you know, a general launcher for SteamOS, right? If you're putting that on a PC or even on a Steam Deck, right? Because like, I don't think the expectation is that you're going to use your handheld gaming device as a media device, right? Like it's for gaming, right? And you know, a set-top box in your living room, I think does kind of maybe carry a different set of expectations, particularly if they do want to, you know, have it be this device that exists to kind of like Trojan horse the Steam marketplace into your living room as a console player who doesn't want to buy a PC and mess with, you know, drivers and like maintaining a device. They just want to buy a box and plug it into their television, and you know, maybe that's the compromise there. But it's interesting because like I wonder if maybe there's not a universe where they create like, I don't know, like some kind of like compatibility layer, right, where it's like you don't actually have to like have the entire thing, like maybe it's like there's, you know, SteamOS built on top of it or something like that, in the way that like people do that.
It's like you go into desktop mode, you go into like Chrome OS mode kind of thing.
Right, because it's like you think of the way that like people like Samsung, for example, has like their version of Android, right, that they've built out, and it has certain functionality and exactly, right, but it's like it's ultimately still Android, and it's like I'm wondering if there's not some way to do that, right, where you create some kind of compatibility layer where you can use features of Chrome OS, specifically like launching Netflix or accessing, you know, your Apple TV library or something like that.
Could be they're just using this like embedded controller because that gives them like a level of DRM or something that the likes of Netflix or Hulu or whoever is like, you know what, we need that extra level of security or we're not going to come to your platform. And that might already have it baked in because Google's done the legwork there. They're maintaining it. You tap into that, have that as your kind of HDMI controller, and then you put SteamOS on top of it. And it becomes then like this full stack.
And
it's
it does,
like you've got...
It does look like they're already working together anyway, right? Like, because they're working to bring Steam to Chrome OS. So the idea that like, you know, there's some...
I mean, they're looking to bring Steam everywhere, by the looks of it. I mean,
right, for sure.
The trend.
But you know what I mean? Like maybe there's a little bit of a kind of like exchange there of like, hey, like we'll bring Steam to Chrome OS, and then we'd love to license this compatibility layer, right? Like you said, and create that stack where they can access the parts of Chrome OS that they need for rights management, or, you know, to not have to go through the trouble of like having a app store that supports things that are not video games.
Sorry, I've been silent because I've been researching, and I think I'm ready to come with my research.
You've cracked the code. Go for it.
Crack the case.
I've cracked a case. You mentioned Chromecast, and I thought, I'm sure they've shut Chromecast down, and they've got rid of that, and they're sold out on the Chromecast line.
They've got rid of the hardware, but the functionality of Chromecast lives on, right?
Yes, well, yeah, because now they have the Google TV streamer, which is a new. It's not like the old one where it's just a dongle that sits in there and your phone controls it. It is a full, has a remote, its own remote. You can still sort of cast to it. It's got the sort of the voice command stuff on it, and it is plugs into your TV, sits there, connects to via an Ethernet cable onto the Wi-Fi. So it could be that there's a pro model of this Google TV streamer that has games capabilities. And this here is also, it's a hub that lets you control your Google Home devices. Same way they tried that with the iPad a couple of years. iPad, the Pixel Tab, whatever, that sat on a dock. It could be that they are beefing that up and offering a pro version of this Google TV streamer, that lets you play games. Whether it be as powerful as it sort of says it is, or if that's just, we're only going off of like the testing phase. This isn't a product ready to be bought yet, right? We can't assume that that's the final thing it's going to be. But at a guess, if it's going to be a plug-in HDMI CEC thing, and they've just literally 2 months ago released a product that that sort of fits that niche but much weaker, could it be that we're seeing a TV streamer plus, but it's actually called the, I don't know, TV streamer pro, I don't know, gamer.
I could see it, but like, man, once again, Google entering the gaming space, it just doesn't instill me with much confidence. If that is the case, it's like that's the thing, though, such a pig's ear of Stadia.
I think if you think of it less as like, hi, we're Google and we're making a console, right? And more like we are trying to like make a elevated set-top box, and one of the things that it does is play video games, and it can play games from the Android store and Steam, right? And like maybe eventually you get support from Epic, maybe Game Pass comes to it eventually, right? Like, and you again, it's like less of a like, this is a proprietary game console that we're going to have studios for. And because like I think you're right, like I think they've moved away from that, but the idea of like, okay, well, if we don't want to be in the business of making games but we still want to own part of that, right? It's like, you just kind of create your inroad that way. I don't know.
Are you saying that whatever this is, it's an Xbox? Is that what you're saying?
It is an Xbox, yeah.
Wow.
It could be. That's the
thing.
I think
my Kindle can be an Xbox at this rate. It's like, you can just
anything's an Xbox.
Anything's an Xbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I struggle to see Google giving up control of any kind of store in their 30%. But maybe this is a way that they're just like, oh shit, the FTC's kind of got shocks around us. They're trying to force us to sell off Chrome in its entirety, which presumably Chrome OS goes with it.
Right.
Well, and again, could they force that? Can they force them to? Because surely Chrome is just the browser. That's what they're rid of, because that monopolizes search. Do they really have to get rid of the OS and everything that goes along with that, just because it's? Can they not just rebrand Chrome OS to something else?
I mean, it's up to the FTC as to what they say that they need to do in order to mitigate potentially breaking up the entire company.
That's wild.
I had another thought there, but it's.
I'm sorry.
I mean, okay. they were found to be an illegal monopoly, so they've got to do something.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. Like, that's the reason this is all happening. But yeah, like, who knows if that happens.
What I was going to say was, I think rather than thinking about it as like Google giving up their percentage, I'm thinking more like they get some kind of cut potentially.
They get a bit of kickback. So like
Valve they get a cut from Valve. Yeah, Valve takes 20 and any sales made on the box, they get 10 or they get 5 or whatever, right? And like that's the way that Google reconciles those two goals.
I could potentially see that, yeah. Or maybe there's something there. I mean, there was the rumor that Steam was potentially coming to Xboxes as well. Who knows if that's going to happen? Because seemingly there's a whole new strategy when it comes to everything's an Xbox that Max spoke about. So I could see Valve just wanting to get this everywhere, get Steam anywhere. They get their 30% cut. Everyone has their library with them. The games that can play on that device, play on that device. But this seems like a pretty chunky device. It's possible that this is nothing and this is just a reference device that they're experimenting with internally. But the fact that it's got a code name, it's got this like HDMI thing. There's lots of things it could be. Like it could even be, remember that box that we spoke about earlier this year that was potentially a box that links up with the Deckard and has some kind of solution there. So, yeah.
I do hope that something comes from it, because I think it would be really cool to get to a point where you have that kind of like, ecosystem of like your PC, your set-top box, your Steam Deck, and they all, live within that same library, like that. is so attractive, I think, and I could definitely see that playing out for them if they are able to crack that code. So I want to get into these this SteamOS story here in just a second, because I am just so excited for this to maybe finally, almost maybe truly actually be here.
Yeah, it's
maybe
only 2 years in the making.
Maybe we'll see. Maybe we're halfway there. Who's to say? But before we do that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck Podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of December. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valen, Steve Stompy, Susan Still Likes Cats and Also Boobies, Ty the Dude, Voodoo Vic, and Waka Hula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Remember, if you want to get involved, you want to show your support, you want to go check out those shows, Nintendo Noise and the Flip Screen Games podcast, you can do all that and much more by heading over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you'll find links to all the places we are all over the web. However you choose to get involved or show your support, that's the best place to head. So go over there and click on something. It helps us out a lot. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the show. Let's get back into it. All right, Max, you brought this one to the table today. We got some updated branding guidelines from Valve, and it has some very interesting visuals here.
This is meaty. This is a meaty. I believe it was, again, I think we owe Brad Lynch, sadly it's Bradley, a lot for the last 3 weeks. I'm pretty sure it's all been.
Real quick, I just want to put this out there. I'm trying to practice a little bit of manifesting in my life. I'm gonna get Bradley on the show in 2025.
Yeah, do it.
We got to get Bradley on the show.
But it's guaranteed it'll be a week Steve's off, and we just have to nod and go, yeah.
Oh yeah. Don't say anything like, horrible about VR. The man's like a VR mascot. So
maybe I'll skip that week.
Maybe it will just be Steve and Bradley. But anyway,
maybe it would just me and him, and he yells at me about VR.
Maybe, but the big sort of, like, he sort of mentioned on X. It's like talking about an X when you say X now. That the Valve has added some new third-party hardware branding logos and guidelines, and it's not just what he's got here. There's a full brand guidelines document
it's a 45-page document.
Yeah, it's been leaked, or it's been, I don't know. I guess it's for anyone who might be working with Steam on various things, but there's a lot in here. The most important stuff is sort of listed here, that there is now a sticker that says "Powered by SteamOS," which we've been saying for a long time. That they've been working on SteamOS as a standalone thing, and now it seems like there is branding to go along with it. That now third-party developers, third-party manufacturers can, if they're including SteamOS on their product, include this sticker. And it's all sort of like, a lot of the icons are all designed in such a way that it's almost like they're trying to really capture the branding of making Steam I don't know, not just an app you have on your phone on your computer. It is a part of a product, I guess. It's a selling point, much in the same way that the Steam Deck is. And I'm sure the Steam Deck will probably even say "Powered by SteamOS" on it, maybe. Who knows,
probably from now on, right?
Comes out. But
I really don't want a sticker that I have to peel off. I used to hate doing that with the little Intel stickers that were
it won't be on there.
Well, who say it's a sticker? Maybe it's just printed on the box,
Yeah, unless they have to go back to the old ones and stick it on. But yeah, so it seems like we're getting Powered by SteamOS on these devices. So what do you think this is, like, just a just in case thing, or do you think this is like we're revving up for it?
Just in case.
Yeah.
They've already spoken about the fact that they're working with ASUS to bring it to the ROG Ally and bring support to that.
Mm-hmm.
I see that we get a SKU probably in the new year that is like, do you want it with Windows or do you want it with SteamOS? There's also one other label, which is Steam included as
There's
well.
two, actually. There's one other one and they're both for third-party packaging. It says where the other one, it's the same thing, but it says Steam compatible. So I guess if there's somewhere it's installed on the device at launch.
Well, the Steam compatible is related to controllers, so that is like a separate thing. But the Steam included means it comes pre-installed with Steam, which is at the moment something that Valve's not not really been allowing. So like you get your fresh new ROG Ally. First thing you need to do, hop on Microsoft Edge, download the browser you actually want, download, then go to that one and download Steam. And you have to like work it as like you're kind of starting your PC from scratch. Whereas now you can have the Steam included and have it preloaded on the device. I'd imagine this would be great for like gaming PCs, gaming laptops, potentially handhelds, like the Windows powered handhelds. But the Steam powered by SteamOS one is definitely the most exciting, I think.
Yes, I think the Steam included is a good, because I people who always know I'm into this sort of space, and they'll say, oh, what shall I get? Shall I get this? Shall I get that? And I say, oh, I recommend just getting the Steam Deck, but the ROG Ally is on sale at the moment, so get that if you want. And they're like, oh, where do I get the games? And I'm like, oh, you can just get Steam. They're like, oh, you can get Steam on that, can you? I'm like, yeah, it's just a PC, because they only know consoles. So as far as they know, you go on the ROG store and you download that sort of stuff, So to have that on there, I guess it gives you a better idea. You're buying the box, that's what's on there. And like Steve said, you don't have to go on and let Edge go, please don't download Chrome. I'm just as fast as Chrome, like Edge does when you search download Chrome on it, which is good. Pete mentioned the Steam compatible thing as well, which is very interesting. It's to go on third-party controllers, of which we've seen one so far that I guess would count for this, but it doesn't have a couple of things on here. So that the only currently existing third-party Steam controller wouldn't actually be Steam compatible, as far as I know, because it doesn't have a couple of the things. But
which features does it have that?
I don't think it has.
Talking about?
It's the Hori controller. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have gyro.
It does.
Okay. Does it have the capacitive touch?
It does. It does. It has both of those things.
All right,
and the one thing it doesn't have is the rumble, which is not a required feature.
Okay. All right. Fine. Then I'm wrong about that. But let me list those features out now while I'm. Or Pete, have you got?
No. Go ahead. Do that, and then
fine.
we can move on to my thing.
So it must have a Steam button on there, so a specific button that would act as the Steam button that's on the Steam Deck. Quick access menu button. I assume that's going to be the 3 dots that are on the Steam.
It is.
There we go. It's going to have a view and menu button, which is just start and select. Am I right in that?
Yes, and they're the ones that looked like the old Xbox 360.
Yes,
ones.
Yeah. And they had the glyphs, the icons, or the pictures on those buttons must match the Steam Deck. So this is very clearly a Steam Deck focused thing here. It must have ABXY in a layout that matches the Steam Deck, and it must have rear or auxiliary rebindable buttons, 2 or more. So it needs to have those extra additional buttons, which is clearly a feature that people love about their Steam Deck, and they're making that mandatory for this sort of Steam compatible certification thing. It also has to have gyro controls, capacitive touch sensing thumbsticks, which go hand in hand. You put your thumb on the stick, and then you're sort of in gyro, which the first time that ever happened to me, I was just really confused, and then I've actually found it to be quite handy. And it also says here the controller must be able to directly interface with Steam running on a device without a Steam link. So it must have that Steam. Help me out, Steve.
Does support Steam input.
Steam input. That's it. Yeah, there we go.
Because the Hori one has a switch on it that allows you to swap between X input, which is the DirectX Xbox input, and then Steam input itself. So you can kind of switch between the two. And Steam input is what allows you to do all of that core customization within the Steam client, where you can rebind buttons, tweak how sensitive the gyro is, all those kind of good things that you'd want to do with like a third-party controller like the Hori one.
And we also think that. Oh, sorry, Pete, you had something to say, didn't you?
Do you have another thing about the controller?
About a controller.
Go ahead, finish that then.
So we also saw, this is actually from 2 weeks ago, but I guess now with this extra context, it sort of helps out. 2 weeks ago, there was a new controller from GameSir that had leaked. That showed it's a short video that showed a user holding up what looks like an Xbox controller in grey, but it has a Steam button in the middle. It has the start and select, or whatever they're called, buttons. Seems to have a quick access menu button, and in the video the thumb goes over the joystick, and then the gyro is activated. So this seems to be the first controller one of the first controllers that I've seen that matches up with this specifically. And now 2 weeks later,
only the second one. Yeah, we got the Hori one, and now this one.
That's it. Yeah.
The like little toggle to make those like hair triggers. Oh god, I want that for like a shooter. That looks absolutely fucking banging. And
there's extra buttons on it as well, doesn't it? Oh, the click as well of that hair trigger is really nice. So it's 2 weeks after that came out, we're now seeing that this is. So clearly, it seems to me like Valve are ramping up into like a full, I don't know, a
It
new
feels like
era for
they've got
Steam.
enough stuff here that they could have their own event. Like we could have
Yeah.
like a Steam event, and it could be like, oh, now you can have Steam. You love your Steam Deck. Now you can have SteamOS on your ROG Ally, your
Yeah.
Lenovo Legion Go. And we partner with all these other companies, and all of this other stuff's coming. Oh, and here's a box, and here's a headset, and here's like 6 new controllers.
Yeah.
Like there's so much stuff.
Huge. And it also seems huge, not in a way of like, oh, you know, this stuff's in the works. Maybe this seems like imminently they're going to be launching full products and full.
Yeah, the brand
you know,
guidelines clearly are, you know, a precursor to something.
Yes, they're putting Steam into more devices. They're making Steam front and center. They're making Steam which for PC gamers already is the de facto place, and for a lot of people that is where you go and buy your games. But they're making it the de facto. You want to get involved in PC gaming, PC handhelds, or you want to get involved in, you know, accessing PC gaming in a way that's more console-like, and that Steam is that place, and that is the way you do it. And they're controlling the branding, and they're, you know, sure people will be able to release controllers that don't fit all of those elements, and they'll still work. They just won't have that Steam compatible thing on there.
Right, like you could still use a PlayStation controller, for example,
Exactly.
but that doesn't mean it's going to have this on the box.
Yeah, but people are going to probably look for this Steam compatible thing if they're buying their Steam Deck and they want the controller that goes with it.
It makes sense, especially if like this new box is potentially a thing, or we start seeing more people use the new big picture mode, and that's because like if Steam's included, even if it's a Windows device, they could have it boot directly into big picture mode, so that's a possibility. And you want to be able to access the quick access menu without having to remember, oh, I've got to hold down the PlayStation button and press A, and then this slides out, and it's like there's just so much extra stuff there. And for me, it's like the gyro and the capacitive thumbsticks are just like a game changer. I love that. And no other controllers had it other than the Hori one.
Yeah, very cool to see them kind of like streamlining some of those things to encourage third-party controllers to get made with Steam in mind, you know? So the last thing I wanted to call out that I just thought was interesting. I don't think it's like nearly as interesting as these other things, but there's also one here for its Steam Play Here, and they specifically call it out as like a place where people can play Steam games at a brick and mortar establishment, and they call out PC cafes, but then they also mention like university computer labs, libraries, trade shows. Yeah, and then they have like a link to like they have like a page where you can go like sign up for the Steam PC Cafe system, basically.
Is that
which is interesting. I don't know if this is like a new thing or
it's got to be a new thing, because at the moment I don't know that there's a way to quickly log in and out and have your games there on like a PC Cafe kind of thing. Presumably they'll have some of the most popular ones preloaded, but I don't think there's any way to kind of just have it switch.
So yeah, they have a whole FAQ here about like you can get commercial game licenses, and that's how it'll work.
Okay, so you have to pay bank for like a.
I think this is a new system, because it says here, are all games on Steam available through the PC Cafe program? No, only games where the publisher or developer has expressly included them in our Cafe program. Whether they're available for free or with a charge. You can make them for free as well, which is interesting.
So you're thinking like you go to a club like a cafe or whatever, and you've got all of the Valve games are installed, or all of the, you know, like esports games are installed, and then you can just go to like an esports cafe and they're already there, and you as the cafe pay that license for everyone, you know. Yeah,
and I'm sure that like there's probably a system of like for like single player games or whatever, of like you log in and you have, you know, you set up a session.
Steam Cloud download your save from the cloud, I presume. Like you put your Steam account in, maybe scan it with your phone, because you could do that with the Steam app now. Just scan the QR code and it'll log you in. It seems really cool. I love that. Like, it's not something we see much in the West anymore, but I know they're very prevalent in Asia and specifically like South Korea. They're like huge on like esports cafes.
Yeah, and like, you know, maybe this is just another one of those like strategies of like getting Steam in front of more people, you know, and like, you know, trying to expose more gamers to PC gaming.
I have seen this, Steve, game. The shop in the UK before they got bought out by Sports Direct, and maybe even a little bit after the fact, some game stores have a section of the once you go past all of the Funko Pops and
Oh
the
yeah,
toys,
it's like the bit at the back, the Ann Summers bit.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
you
it's
go
all
behind closed doors.
past the curtain, and then there's all these kids
Yeah.
playing Fortnite. Like that's a big, that was the thing they started pushing out. I don't think they do it as much anymore, but that, you know, it does exist.
They are like a thing in America too. It's like they're not super common, but like you do see them, and like I've seen them more in the last couple of years. Like I feel like after the initial wave of the pandemic like closed a lot of businesses. There's like a lot of open like I've seen a lot of VR arcades too, like popping
I've
up.
seen VR ones, yeah, and like board game cafes are really popular.
Yeah, those
so
are a
I
big
can
thing
imagine-
here.
I can imagine that.
Not even just
this could
cafes,
be an
just like
extension of that.
board game stores, right? Like places where you
Yeah.
go and buy games, and also they have like 10 tables or whatever for you to play Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's definitely like I'm interested in like the story there. Like, why does this exist? Did somebody like ask for this? Is this an initiative of theirs of like, if, you know, we get it in university libraries, we could, you know, indoctrinate kids into PC gaming.
I mean, it could be just as simple as like, this was really difficult. They couldn't do it legally. It's probably a violation of the Steam terms of service to have like a single account that's downloaded the game and let multiple people play it. And this is just a formalization of it, because if these were already a thing, you don't want to lose out to something like, you know, League of Legends, which is on like an alternative platform, especially if you've got your new hot game coming out that you've, you know, put on Steam but not spoken about, but still was one of the highest games of 2024, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm wondering like what the impetus was there. Like, is this a trend that they're reacting to, or is this a thing that they're trying to
Are they trying to drive it themselves?
create a culture around it? Yeah, because like a lot of universities have gaming clubs. A lot of, you know, cities or you know, even small towns are like opening up these PC cafes again, and it's like, is this them trying to be like, let's lead the charge, right? Like let's get out in front of it and make Steam again, right? Like make Steam the de facto way to put games on your PCs at your gaming cafe or whatever. I don't know.
Do you ever feel like we're going back in time sometimes? Like, I really feel like I look at fashion, I look at music, I look at stuff like internet cafes, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm a kid in the early 2000s.
I mean,
again.
you don't remember your parents saying that to you when you were a kid about how like stuff always comes back around? Like it's,
Yeah,
I think
man.
I think that's definitely part of it. But I also think that when you're talking about the like internet cafes and stuff like that, I think on some level that probably just speaks to a like desire from young people to have third places. Because, like, they're not really as much of a thing anymore. And, like, I mean, there are probably people listening who don't even know what that concept means, right? But it's like...
my gym is one for a lot of kids.
Yeah,
a
gym...
just, like, gather around there.
A gym's a third location, right? But, like...
Shopping malls are closing.
I think,
Is
yeah,
that
like
you
a
should
better...
never go with a stranger. Is that what you're talking about?
No, like, it's like a place that you go that's not your home or your job, that you go to like socialize or to like partake in an activity, right? Because like you said, if you go to your gym, maybe you interact with people while you're there. Maybe you go to a class, right? Whatever. That's a third location that you're out going and doing things. And it's like internet and you know, especially not even necessarily pre-internet, but pre like Gen 2 internet, right? Like if you wanted to rent a movie, you would go to the video store, right? If you wanted to, you know, prior to the explosion of like better home consoles, if you wanted to play video games, you went to an arcade. And it's like, obviously we've gotten to a place with a lot of these things where like technology doesn't like has kind of outpaced the need for there to be a physical location. But now it's more about selling an experience and like community and like going to a place where you can interact with people that have the same interests as you. Or just like get out of your fucking house, you know?
In the UK, I think traditionally that was usually a pub. And like,
yeah, I was
would just
thinking
go to the
pubs.
pub for a drink. But I know now a lot of people just don't drink.
Younger
COVID has undone a lot of that. hasn't it?
younger people are not drinking as much as they used to, which is like that's probably part of it too, right? It's well, fair enough. But it's like bars are one of those, but so are, you know, cafes and stuff like that. But it's like a lot of people don't drink, so it's like, and I think there is kind of like that sense of like, well, if I want to go to a like, if you were somebody who was like, I want to go out and meet people, right? Like not go out and have a drink with people I already know. It's like, what are the odds that you're going to meet somebody at a bar that has the same interests as you? Whereas like if you go to a PC gaming cafe, right, and you want to meet other people that play video games, it's like, well, that's probably a pretty good chance that you'll meet somebody there that has. That's, again, to your point, Steve, that's why board game cafes are a thing, right? It's like, I like board games and I want to play them with other people that like them, not have to like wrestle my family members or like get 10, of my friends in a room and lock the door so that they'll play with me, So, I don't know. It's interesting. I would love to. It's one of those things where I love how transparent Valve is, and also I wish that they were sometimes, like, I would love to have some press release of like, here's why we're doing this, And it's
I feel like they've just got so many things going on, and they've not got a traditional structure. So like, someone probably just put these brand guidelines together and pop them up online. I'm just like, oh, here we go, these are done. And like,
we need to send them to somebody. Let's get them made.
Let's just get it done. It's like, oh, we'll do that. Whereas like any other normal company would just be like, yeah, we're gonna perfectly do this. We're gonna have a press release that we're launching these internet cafes with X, Y, and Z and launching them, and that's why we've got this new program. That's one marketing beat. The other marketing beat is SteamOS is releasing. The other one is we're now doing this like hardware scheme where you can have Steam compatible. It's like you've got 3 stories here, and it's just one PDF that they put online.
You get the corporate people explaining it all to consumers for some reason, which is because now it's how everything's communicated. It's directly from the very top of the company to the buyer, and
communicators cost money, Max.
But they've got the face of PC gaming. They have Gaben,
I mean, like I would even kill for like an equivalent to like the PlayStation blog, where it's just like, and like they have that, like they do, like whenever there's an update to SteamOS, we get like patch notes. They post about like sales and stuff like that. Like obviously this guidelines, they exist over on their website. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. It would be nice, I guess, to have a way to get like a little bit more of a peek into the thought process behind some of this stuff. But maybe we just got to ask him to come on the show and do an interview. Maybe that's the move.
I've emailed them multiple times.
Do it again.
Falls on deaf ears, but I will do it again.
Email Gabe directly. Gabe replies to everything.
Gabe does reply. Yeah,
Gabe then at valve.com. That's it.
Yeah.
That is, and he replies to people and he sends pictures to people.
You should do it. You should be like, hey man, big fan of the the console. We'd love to.
He literally says in the Portal 2 commentary, he says, email me Gabe at wherever it is. And I remember that, from all those years ago of him saying like, oh yeah, let's get in touch and do it.
Go for it.
Yeah, someone emailed him like the other day and was just saying, I hope you're having a really good day. And he's like, I am, thanks. I hope you are too.
And that's how you get him on the show.
That's how we get him on the podcast. It's like, hey man, I hope you're having a really good day. Also, could you come on the show? Go for it.
We are the Steam Deck podcast.
That's why I named it this. Come on.
Yeah. Then he's aware of it, and we get a cease and desist. And we've got to stop using the name.
That's monkey paw right there. It's like, notice us, Gabe, and he's like, "Oh, you guys, bang, hammers down."
Yeah, I feel like we're probably in the sweet spot right now because I'm sure that someone there has glided across the name of the show. Like, I'm sure it's come up, but.
Mm-hmm. Don't meet your heroes, man. I remember when I had a Facebook group for Nintendo. I sort of made a little community, and some guy, one of the admins, was friendly with the community manager for Nintendo UK. And I remember him emailing me and was like, or my mate emailing me, messaging me going, "Hey, that guy knows about us." And I was like, "How do you know?" He's like, "He made a Facebook status." And I was like, "Oh my god, show me the status." And it was like, that thing's got a shit name for something that's not blah blah blah. Basically, he was just slating the name of it, and I was like, oh, no, really? I didn't need to know that. You could have kept that to yourself.
Well, a bit of a downer note to leave us on, Max, but that's where we're going to wrap it for today. You saved your handbrake for the very end of the show, so that's something.
I can do another one if you want.
No. We're going to wrap it up there for the day. Thank you guys for joining us here in another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Remember, if you want to get involved in the community, you want to check out our sister shows, Nintendo Noise and the Flip Screen Games Podcast. You want to write into the show and get your thoughts right on the air. You could do all that and much more by heading over to flipscreen.games. That's our website. Go over there, click on some stuff. It helps us out a lot more than it'll cost you. So, thank you for joining us. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. Over there's been Max. We'll see you next week.